Welcome back to Persona 4 Dancing All Night Anthology Spoiler Talk for the final time. Yes, today we will be covering the ending, as well as the previous episodes. The spoiler talk on the review will cover story, gameplay, presentation, and more for all content covered at this time and prior. In this case, it's everything. Sort of the results of covering the finale of the story and more, though. So here's my regular spoiler warning on this curtain call. Get out now, or within the next 3, 2, 1... go. If you noticed, we will tackle 2 parts once again. Technically, it's 3 this time, but I'll get into that later. Chapters 7 and 8 make up the climax, and following action are instead split up by a change of scenery, then a change of cast or other story elements. The overall narrative comes together from the 2 branches that had been parallel before. 1 with the investigation team charging after the mysterious voice within the Midnight Stage, and 2 where Kanami had learned of her lost memories from her witness role in her idol's suicide. This is all going down as the Love Meets Bond Festival continues on with the climactic performance of Kanami's new song quickly approaching. You and the crew find themselves in a mixing studio. It's almost a sterile environment without the same welcoming feeling of the dressing rooms from before.
You're right. Yuko Asada isn't singing this.
Then who?
The singer is a girl who was at the studio auditioning on the day of Yuko's suicide. She was the one who found Yuko's body.
What?
Here, Ochimizu reveals Kanami's role in Yuko's story to everyone. She had not been aware herself and had noticed her inability to retain memories regarding the subject, being a big hint towards her finding it out. And with that all, a glowing, yellowed-eyed Kanami appears on the monitors for all to see. She sports a layered version of the mysterious voice and continues preaching her choir and putting down the investigation team for their efforts. But soon enough, Ochimizu pleads to reason with Kanami's shadow cause an irregularity, and new questions of doubt show up in both the player and characters alike. How could Kanami's shadow show up when she never entered this world? What force could drag these people in the first place? What force could even create this world?
What these children showed us wasn't for nothing. Kanami, true bonds do exist.
Ms. Ochimizu.
What bullshit! You're playing in this farce too, Miss Ochimizu? What a freaking letdown! We don't need that shit here! All this cheap friendship crap is so shallow I could puke!
The question doesn't persist long, though. The drastic voice changes shows something else is going on behind the scenes, and the mysterious voice changes the subject. What's on the agenda now? Shaking commences and the crew leaves to find a new world around them. It's the LMB Festival itself. With the LMB Fest dragged into the world and the 2 realities combined, the investigation team charges again into the main hall where the crowd, Kanami, and Nanako find themselves in positions for a performance without even knowing they had gotten there. And with this new setup, a familiar process continues with Kanami's shadow luring her into the ribbons. Kanami's weakness, her character arc, offers a real glimpse at what the game wants to say in its overall theme, the everlasting question of whether the persona you show to the world to avoid actually showing your real self, and whether it is the only part of you that is truly not alone, is the real question. The crushing memory of her role model losing herself to the despair that she felt only drove her further into that darkness. Of course, the solution is known. At this point, the message really does feel like overkill, as the members of Kanami Kitchen offer their support and the crowd is swayed to encouraging her along with the investigation team. Kanami returns to her senses and brings about the formation of a new gang of friendship within her idol group. So, is it a win? So there are no other cast members to turn, right? Kanami's shadow should return to her. Or not.
That's a good point. Not only did it pull in people's shadows with that video, it created this ginormous world. That's a lot more power than that poor maiden's shadow should have.
Then, we should consider the possibility of something with greater power manipulating events here.
Instead, the seeming shadow transforms, taking the crowd with her as she retreats into her own domain and declares herself as the goddess Mikuratana no Kami, the god who embodies the desire for bonds. Admittedly, this move that Dancing All Night pulls is a move way too textbook for the series. The mysterious god embodying something important to thematic message and manipulating everything behind the scenes is way played out in the series, and has really actually been the case in basically every Persona game. Well, every Persona 4 game at least. For me, the game certainly puts the icing on the cake to the point it would be hard to speculate the possibility of cupcakes anymore. It goes exactly how you would expect, and future games are going to be hard to shake this sort of thing off.
This is the final battle. Dance like you want to win.
Yay!
As the typical way, the team charges in after the god and puts forth one last song to change its mind, and they succeed. Happy endings ensue, with Risei's concerns over her own self-doubt being the thing that brought about the events in the first place, being quickly dismissed by the group as a whole. Everything lives happily ever after, until next time. Margaret wraps it all up with our fourth wall breaking friend as she sums up the important interactions that people have in their life and her own aspirations for such bonds. The end.
I see. That's a very serious failing.
Yep, totally unforgivable. As punishment, you must buy me a beef bowl.
What? Come on, I'm being serious.
With the story done and the victory lap successful and being both intriguing yet predictable from beginning to end, there is still more to tackle. The free dance mode is one where you can play every song from the story mode regardless of the progress from it. In fact, the dances are identical and can offer some minor spoilers if contextless in regard to the shadows from background animations and models. But in general, the important part is that the gameplay is fun. When tackling greater difficulties than offered in the story, the difficulty rise heavily, as the complexities of the rhythms result in chaotic on-screen sets of information and greater mastery than I could ever really handle. But the rising difficulties come from complexity rather than expansion of mechanics. No new player will be lost after a tutorial or two, and the excellent music can help even the most staunch of potential players to have a good time. Speaking of music and sound, I will say the sound design can be a bit questionable at times. The insistence on stuff like corny dialogue during the gameplay is just sort of annoying. Luckily, the game gives a large assortment of customization options like turning off those voices, picking your sound effects for button presses and scratches, and changing the speed of the notes. This last one is particularly loved by me because of how much easier it makes it to see the rhythms when the notes come in faster on harder difficulties. The visuals to match up with the music and sound effects are certainly up to the task that those sounds employ. Overlays and menus give off that stylish Persona charm fans of the series will know, love, and definitely expect. Dance animations are often fluid, and the attention to the detail in each song shows why not being able to switch out of the main dancer on each song was employed as part of the mechanics. Every song feels like its own chapter to the playlist novel. Of course, not being able to change is not ideal, but it comes down to whether you want something a bit more polished or something a bit more customizable, and I think the game overall has a pretty decent balance of both, with that exception being the big, sort of questionable one. Now, most songs offer the ability to choose a partner for Fever Time. These are one of the many unlockables the game throws at you. Every song played gives money, chances to unlock more Fever Time partners, and more songs unlocked until they all are unlocked. The money is used to buy costumes, which are largely throwbacks to costumes implemented in Persona 4 Golden. Other buff items are also used, but I can't say I ever really partook. On the surface, they appear to be in bad taste for the competitive spirit if you have one like myself. So you really won't want to use those if you just want to beat the songs fair and square. More importantly, the game has a completion bonus. Yes, it does. You don't have to beat all the songs on the highest difficulty either. You only have to beat all of them on some level. You have to get stage clear on every single song, essentially. To do this, the story mode must be completed to unlock the credit songs as a playthrough in Free Dance. With the story mode completion, you also unlock an item in the shop which you can use to unlock Margaret as a character, and you also get an exclusive song to her that you have to complete to get this completion bonus. With those two out of the way, a new story chapter opens up as a prologue to the whole affair. The investigation team learns of Risei's LMB festival plans for them and decides to make a video to encourage them down the line during their efforts in practice. Hilarity ensues for a good half hour across each member's introduction. I really like this section, as potentially my and many others' final farewell to the investigation team. It just feels so appropriate. It feels like an encore that throws on the band's greatest and most beloved hits as a celebration to this great story and cast.
It's hard to explain Teddy in general, so I say we should just leave it at that.
I was all alone inside the TV, but when Sensei and Yosuke came and found me, everything changed.
Inside the...
Yep, I was born inside the TV. Then Sensei came, and since I faced my own shadow, I even have my own persona now.
What?
Teddy, get it,
there! Don't worry about him, Inoue-san.
He's in character right now. That's just his theme.
Yeah, he wears that mascot costume around everywhere. It's part of that stuff.
Oh, of course. Theming is a really important part of the industry.
Ultimately, Persona 4 Dancing All Night is the fourth game in the Persona 4 story. It's the final one chronologically, and is not really afraid to play with that fact. Though it doesn't rely too heavily on the previous outings to establish its narrative, so it is accessible to newcomers. Though it is important to note that it really isn't anything special from a story perspective without that background and ability to see where the game is coming from with its previous entries. Now, for a game that could have potentially ruined the cast and story for many, it really does hold its own without losing its identity. It's in no way perfect, and it doesn't really try to be either. It does exactly what it seems like it wants to: celebrate Persona 4 with a fun, final outing. Hopefully. God, I hope.
Okay, then shall we do our usual?
We're saying we are, right? Mm-hmm. Well then, everyone, here goes! For our fans, for our friends, for ourselves, this is a one-time only performance. Now who's ready?